In order to reinvent yourself, do you have to make major changes? Like, can you not make small ones and still be reinvented? Well, I've got sort of a cryptic answer to that question in this video.
Welcome to Reinventing You, the channel where you can be inspired to reinvent your life so that you can live a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If this is your first time, if you've just clicked on this video, you have done the number one thing to support me here at Reinventing You. And by the way, my name is Amelia. Do you have to make major changes? That is, do you have to have these huge, big, sweeping things in order to reinvent yourself? Now, in order to explain what I'm talking about, I'm going to use 3 examples. Using the example of tying your shoes, vacuuming, and playing the game Ticket to Ride. I don't know how old you were when you first learned how to tie shoes or who taught you, but most people do it this way. And the first thing we do is we tie a square knot. And then we make a loop. Now I'm right-handed, so I make a loop with my right hand, but I use my left hand to pull the loop so that it's, it's kind of straight up. And then I put you get so old you think, how do I explain how to do it? But you loop the string or the tie around the loop. And in this example, and unconsciously, I will do this counterclockwise or from the upside and then push the loop through the bottom and pull. Now, as you can see, this actually makes a crooked bow, and it's actually not tied very well. There is a better way to do it. Instead of doing it the way that we probably all unconsciously do it by making the tie around the loop go counterclockwise, you simply start like you normally do. You do your square knot, no changes there, and then you make your loop, no changes there. But what you're going to do is change the direction that you go around the loop. Instead of doing counterclockwise, try doing it clockwise. I always also call it kind of underneath the loop. And believe it or not, this makes a huge difference, but you have to consciously think about it. You can see I'm right there. I'm about to go the other way and like, oh no, I got to go underneath the loop. You can see here I am. I know this is in slow-mo, but here we go. And now I'm going to simply go underneath the loop to make the other part of the bow, or clockwise. Now, it just seems like a very simple change. It's just a very small thing, but it makes a difference in the way the bow holds and the way it looks. It's going to look straighter. It's going to hold longer. Well, I should say it's going to stay tied longer, not just hold longer, but it looks so much better. Now, the example of tying your shoes seems very simplified, but there are a couple things that are going on there. The first is sometimes if you have something that you're doing and it is a habit, you just automatically do that, then you automatically get the same results. In other words, if you tie your shoe like you normally do, you automatically get the crooked bow and it doesn't stay tied. It looks terrible. This is why I always tell people if they're going to wrap a gift or tie somebody's apron, or a little girl wants me to tie her bow, I'm like, I am not the person. I've always said that I'm not the person to do that. But now that I know how to tie a bow correctly, then I can do it. And it really does make a difference. It really holds longer and everything. But I was doing it unconsciously, the quote, wrong way. Sometimes you have a habit, and when you make a change in that habit, just a small thing, it could make a huge difference. So when I'm saying, can you make little changes and still reinvent yourself? Yes, because those little changes are going to end up making bigger ones down the road, or maybe even sooner than down the road. So the first example is, look at your habits. Maybe there's something small that you can change. The next example has to do with a vacuum cleaner, specifically my vacuum cleaner. Now notice is when I have the nozzle on the vacuum to clean the floors, that says clearly what should be the front. Now when I first got this vacuum cleaner, I didn't really read that. I just started using it because it looked like it should go the other way. In other words, the curved part should be in front, right? Doesn't that make sense? That's the way my mother's vacuum cleaner did. But when I discovered when I actually used it that way, it actually didn't pick up anything. But when I turned it around and did it just like it said to do, use the flat side as the front, it worked great. Like I said, when I first got the vacuum cleaner, I didn't pay attention to what it said the front was. Of course, we were in a different house, so I used the carpet part a lot. But when I got to the floors, I couldn't understand why it wasn't picking up anything. But you know, a vacuum, the nozzle on the vacuum should be curved in the front. I mean, that seems like the most sense, but it's not true. On this vacuum especially, you've got to have the flat side, otherwise it's not picking up anything. And you'd think that, you know, it would have occurred to me, you know, long before. It took me a while, and I'm not saying it took me several vacuums, but at least the first couple times I used it, I realized what was going on after that. And so now I know what to do. And I'm just thinking, how many times in our lives we have things that are happening and we think it should be a certain way, logically, or it's always been that way, or it looks this way, and so let's do it in this particular manner. But when we really look and see, it's not working that way. Logically, it seems like it should, but it doesn't. And we're not reading the instructions. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. And we really need to say, okay, what am I doing wrong here? And just making that tiny change and just ignoring what we think it should be and really looking at the picture and saying, okay, what's it telling me? It's telling me to use this flat side. You know, sometimes we get so stuck in our heads and so stuck in our ways, it's really hard to make those changes. But when we do, a little change like that can make a huge difference, and you can actually vacuum up the floor. And by the way, thanks, because I actually got some housework done while making this video. My final example involves the game Ticket to Ride by Alan R. Moon. This is my favorite game pretty much all time. We have several versions, but this is one of the anchor games. This is the America version. And the object of the game is to get to your destination. You have to do it by building your train literally on the tracks to certain places. Now in this version, I just had an example. I'm supposed to go from Dallas to New York. I'm the black, my husband is the red train. I have my imagination going with the white trains that I'm actually going to go from Dallas, and I have my plans made, but my husband all of a sudden went from St. Louis to New Orleans and he blocked me. What can I do? Well, I have to think outside the box. Look, I can go this way through Little Rock and through Nashville and up to Pittsburgh and then to New York City. I don't have to go the way I originally thought I had to go in order to win this game. Now, for somebody who's never played the game, that explanation may not make any sense to you. But the object of that game is to build your tracks with your trains and get from one city to the next. And of course, you're limited to how many trains you can use, and the first person who uses up as many trains, I think it's down to 2 or 3 trains, at the end, that means that it's the end of the game. And the more tickets, the more destinations that you're able to get, and the longer your train and more scores that, scoring that means you getting from city to city with your trains, the better off you are. In the game, I have learned several things. The first off is I will look at the board and okay, I need to get from Dallas to New York and I'm going to go this certain way to figure out, what kind of colors of cards I'm going to get and how I'm going to do it and how many trains it's going to take. But then your opponent comes along and they block you and you're like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm losing the game, and you get all upset. But then I learned to stop thinking one way, to stop saying, I've got to go this way to get to my destination. I had to start saying, okay, I don't have to go this particular way. There's another way to get there. A lot of times when you're trying to make changes, especially big changes in your life, you have to make the small thinking changes. You have to stop thinking a particular way. You have to stop saying, I can only do this, or this is the way I plan to do it. I've got to do it this way, or I can't do it at all. if you can let go, if you can think outside the box, and I hate using that term, but it's true. If you can think outside the tracks, if you can think outside the way you had envisioned it. I had the white little trains and I said, okay, it's got to go this certain way, but it didn't have to go that way. I was the black, my husband was the red. I could go a different way and still get to my destination. If you can train yourself to look for another way to get there, whether it's a change you have in your physical appearance, in your health, in your mental, in your relationships, whatever it is, you may have think, I've got to do it this way to get there. But there may be another way. And in fact, when I actually counted it up, it was less trains. And I didn't have to worry about getting all the green cards in order to get there. I could use other colors and it was a little easier. And that's what I learned playing the game. A lot of times you think, oh, I've got to get this, I got this. I was like, wait, if I go this other way, I already have what I need. And a lot of times if you rethink that, if you just say, okay, what are some other ways that I can accomplish this goal? And sometimes it's a lot easier, it's a lot less stress, and you can do it. So even though it's a small change, it can make a big difference. So can you reinvent yourself by making small changes? Really not, because what you're looking for is little changes that make bigger changes. Little things that can make a huge difference. Small changes that make bigger changes that lead to reinventing yourself. Now, it might happen organically, like you may make a small change and something happens and it's a bigger change and you weren't expecting it. And that's okay too. But just remember, the things that I talked about in this video. If you rethink something, if you make a small habit change, if you quit looking at it a certain way and say, okay, I need to turn the directions because it's just not working this way. It can make a huge difference in your life so that you can live a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. Now, if you have tried to reinvent yourself and by making little changes rather than big ones, let me know in the comments and see how did that work for you? What happened when you make those smaller changes? I would love to hear from you. Please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to share this video. I'm Amelia. This is Reinventing You. Have a great one.